welcome on back to the 4th and 30 podcast. Glad to have you here again with us this week. You might see somebody different. We'll get to that in a moment. But before we do any of that, go ahead and hit that darn subscribe button. We've been asking you guys for 20 plus episodes now. If you just hit it, just takes a little bit of time, just a little clicky poo, goes a long way. So please go ahead and do that wherever you're watching this at. I'm pretty sure you can even follow stuff on Spotify now. So go ahead and do it there too. But we've been covering the divisions as we go along. We've done both the East, both the South, and we're getting ready to do the North. And we've got a couple folks here that are proud of one particular team in the AFC North, but we're going to start in the NFC North. But first, I want to give a shout out to Chase for joining us. How's it going tonight?
Good. How are you guys?
Up to the only good-looking Moore brother. Thanks for coming on.
Chilling.
His last name is Morrow, not
Whatever.
Moore, and I'm the only good-looking Moore brother.
Now that we've settled that, we're going to start in the NFC North, and I am going to pick. What do I want to pick first? Let's go ahead and do running back in the NFC North. Who wants to tackle running back in the NFC North?
Well, as far as running backs in the NFC North, you really have two that stand out at the top. Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones. And I'm going with Dalvin Cook just because due to the fact that Aaron Jones is super productive. This is not a knock on him. And most other divisions, he'd be the best running back. But the difference to me is Aaron Jones does average more yards per carry, 5.5 per carry. Cook averaged 5 yards per carry, but almost ran for 1,600 yards, which was about 450 yards more than what Aaron Jones ran for. Secondly, their receiving numbers are almost identical. So you would almost think that Aaron Jones would have the edge in the receiving department, but it's not the case. I mean, Aaron Jones had 3 more catches for about pretty much the same amount of yards. So I'm going with Dalvin Cook. If I was starting a team today, he'd be a workhorse running back in my system over Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I got to agree. I'd take Dalvin Cook. Aaron Jones is good. He's really good. Would start on most teams. But Dalvin Cook is pretty darn special. I would take either one of them on my team, but if I got to pick from the Dalvin Cook, kind of does it all.
So I think Kyler kind of touched on it there, but he chose the wrong one. So Dalvin Cook is in an offense that is predicated to get Dalvin Cook the ball. Dalvin Cook has a good quarterback, but Dalvin Cook does not have Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. The Packers have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback and are getting Devontae Adams the ball, getting the receivers the ball, and still getting as many receiving yards and just a few less rushing yards. I think even though Dalvin Cook is probably a top 7 back in the league, I would edge Aaron Jones out on this just a bit.
400 rushing yards is not a few.
You named all the reasons on why Dalvin Cook is better.
No, Aaron Jones averaged 5.5 yards a carry. Dalvin Cook had more rushing yards because he is the workload. That's what I just said. You said that Dalvin Cook gets the ball more, so he has more rushing yards.
So Aaron Rodgers is a better Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, so teams have to worry about the pass more. That's what opens it up for Aaron Jones.
So hold on. But because Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, the Packers are passing the ball more. That's why Dalvin Cook has more rushing yards, because he is running the ball more.
And because he's a better running back.
Averaged 5.5 yards a carry. Aaron Jones had as many receiving yards.
But you also happen to take into account that the Vikings are running the ball a lot more, so teams are bracing to stop that more than they would be against.
And he had 400 more yards and averaged half a yard less per carry because they're running the ball more. I'm not disagreeing.
But he was still averaging 5 yards a carry while teams were focusing on him.
I'm not disagreeing with Dalvin Cook is a great running back. And I'm not disagreeing that Aaron Jones benefits from Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying that Aaron Jones averaged half a yard more per carry, has many receiving yards, and the reason why he had less yards rushing is because he ran the ball less. You can make an argument for either one. I'm saying I would take Aaron Jones.
I don't think – I see what you're saying. I just don't think if you run the ball with Aaron Jones that much that he's more fragile, and can he even stay healthy to carry the ball that many times?
I agree with
don't
that.
think
Aaron
so.
Jones has had trouble staying healthy, and he may not be able to carry the ball as much.
But
as
Dalvin Cook has as well.
But I'm saying the reason why Aaron Jones had less rushing yards is because he's in an offense that is more built around passing the football.
But if you do a
super
straight up
productive.
switch, if you put Aaron Jones on the Vikings and Dalvin Cook on the Packers, Aaron Jones can't do what Dalvin Cook does on the Vikings currently.
But
I really don't think he can. There's no but.
I don't know if I agree
Dalvin
with
Cook
that.
can do it on the Packers.
I think the biggest difference would be the receiving yards if you put Dalvin Cook on the Packers. If that was your argument that Dalvin Cook would have a lot more receiving yards, I'd completely agree with that. But that's not even the argument you're trying to make. So I would say Aaron Jones is capable of being a workhorse running back in the league. The only question would be his health. Can he stay healthy? Not is he capable of doing it.
Face, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, my immediate thoughts was Dalvin Cook. I don't even think it's a question after last year, just because of the numbers that he put up. To put up that many gross numbers, it takes a different running back than Aaron Jones.
There you have it, 4-1.
Yep, 4-1. Moving on. Wide receiver in the NFC North is who we're gonna. Well, no, take that back.
They're both top 7 backs. It's really
we're
really
gonna do
close.
defense.
They're both great.
Yeah,
We're gonna
they're
do
both great running
defense
backs.
in the NFC North. Who wants to tackle?
If
Oh,
I'm going
let's
to be
see what we did
completely
there.
honest, in my notes, I have Dalvin Cook down as the best running back. It's just someone had to disagree when everyone was saying Aaron Jones. Or I mean, yeah, everyone had
I
disagreed.
feel like almost
saying
every
Dalvin
topic,
Cook.
there's been a couple we've had so far where it's been two guys who are in question, but it seems like majority of them it's a runaway thing.
I literally have Dalvin Cook as the best running back, but everyone said that, so I had to disagree.
Yeah, we'll do defense in the NFC North next. Who wants to tackle that one?
It's the Bears. Bears have a great pass rush, decent secondary. Really, overall, the division is pretty mediocre defensively. Bears are okay. Vikings are okay. Lions are below average, and Packers, I don't know. I'm taking the Bears.
I mean,
Khalil Mack, Hakeem Hicks. They got several good playmakers defensively.
they did trade one of their best cornerbacks from last year. They lost one of their shutdown corners, but yeah, I mean, if you're going off last year's results, it's not even close. The Bears' defense was, I mean, it was lost in the shuffle, but the Bears' defense was really good last year. I think they barely allowed 300 points, and nobody else in the division came close to that. And that's with the quarterback throwing interception, Mitchell Trubisky not getting first down. So I don't think it's
Andy
very
Dalton's
going
to take care of all that this year. All 17 games.
Andy Dalton.
Dalton.
He's a super nice guy. Super nice guy. So I do think the Packers have a little bit better defense than you might want to give them credit for, but the Bears do probably have the best defense, and it kind of is structured around their linebackers. They have some of the better linebackers in NFC North, but so Minnesota can't necessarily be counted out because Danielle Hunter should be back and healthy this year, and that dude is a force to be reckoned with. So they're going to be better on defense than they were last year just purely because of him.
That and, last year their defense was a little bit of a dumpster fire, but I mean, Zimmer's known for having good defenses. Last year was probably more of a fluke than what it wasn't. So I could see.
I'm very sorry. I was cutting out there for a second. But you guys obviously all agreed that the Bears were by far the best defense. Let's just go through this real quick. Packers were the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th best pass defense in the NFL. Bears were 10th. And rushing, the Packers were where were they? I'll just give you guys a hint. They were right there with the Bears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Well, when your offense is on the field the whole game, it helps out too.
No, it's actually quite the opposite. When the Packers score so quick, it's harder for the defense to maintain people from getting yards.
Look up time of possession.
The Packers defense is better than the Bears, and I understand where you guys are coming from, but the Packers had one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. They were like 6th against the pass. They in total yards, they probably actually were better than the Bears too, because rushing is the only thing that the Bears were barely better at them at. The Packers might have a top 5 defense in the NFL this year, which is why I have them where I have 'em in my power rankings.
No, the Bears defense was better. They gave up the same amount of points as the Packers. And how many more turnovers?
The Packers,
But
the Packers score more points, so the game's
Right.
quicker.
The
Right.
number one
More
team
possession.
by a full minute in time of possession last year was the Green Bay Packers.
So they kept their defense off the field, and the Bears. I don't know the numbers, but I would venture to guess they turned the ball over a lot more than the Packers offense did last year.
Yeah. So the Packers were number one in time of possession last year, meaning their offense was on the field the whole time. So your defense, if it's not going to get tired because you're not playing as much as other defenses, sure, you're going to have a little better numbers.
As many
they
points
also-
as they scored, though.
So
you would
here's the
imagine
problem
that
with that's the problem with your logic, Carl. When an
there's a lot
offense
of free
scores
and outs then,
faster,
obviously.
then your defense is getting back on the field faster. So the Packers defense was getting off the field, that means, to get their offense back on the field. When your team scores more points, the other team gets the ball more. That's just how it works. It's not about time possession.
I mean, time of possession is how long your defense is on the field, and the Bears
if your
defense was
defense
on the field longer.
If your defense
Right.
gets off the field fast, then they're on the field less. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Time of possession is the most overused stat in football. Every next gen person will tell you that, because the reason why is that you're saying a defense is doing a bad job by getting off the field fast. That's not the defense. They're doing a good job.
So if the
Yeah.
Bears, go ahead, Chase.
So are we trying to argue that the Packers games that they played, they had the same amount of possessions as the Bears?
Not
Because
even
I would
close.
argue
The Packers had
Packers-
way more possessions, so their defense is
that
doing better
always
by
had
getting off
more
the field.
possessions.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Thank you.
the Bears had 22 turnover giveaways last year. The Packers had 11. So 11 times the Bears offense gave the ball to the opposing team, and they allowed the same amount of points.
And how much
11
faster?
extra possessions.
And how many more possessions do you think were in a Packers game than a Bears game?
And
Over
the
the season, I
Packers
guarantee it was
also,
more than
the
11.
Packers also got to defend the Bears 2 games, and the Bears had to defend the Packers. So there's a lot of signs that point to the Bears.
The
being a better
Packers also
defense.
had to defend the number 1 teams in the NFC, while the Bears got to defend the number 3 teams in the NFC.
number 2 because they finished second the year before.
I think the Vikings did, didn't they? 2 years ago.
I don't know. I was just guessing.
Pretty sure the Vikings finished second 2 years ago, and the Bears finished third.
Bears made the playoffs, didn't they? The year before.
Last year.
Oh.
The year before, the Vikings made the playoffs. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, then they had the doinked field goal that the Seahawks made it to the next round. Anyway,
You guys were going off about how the Bears are by far the best, and they're not by far the best. The Packers have a very good defense.
I like how the guy who's always throwing EPAs and shit in our face is the guy that's going off about a stat not being being too looked at. But that's neither here nor there. Chase, did you have a pick? I assume you're going Packers. From the way you said it.
I was gonna pick Packers. I mean, it's very hard to judge because a Packers game versus a Bears game is very different. The Bears are typically not in the game. The Packers are typically winning by a margin, and they have a good offense. The Bears don't have a good offense. I think it's really close there, and you could even make an argument for the Vikings. I don't think anyone's stepped away from anyone.
What
The
a very
Lions are definitely the
political answer.
dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Damn, Kelsey beat me to it.
You're never more than 2 moves away from saying dumpster fire. All right, Chase, I'll let you have this one. Who's the best quarterback in the NFC North?
I think
Get your
this one-
feet wet here.
This one's pretty easy. You have to go with A-Rod here. I used to say he's the GOAT, but he falls short in the playoffs. So, other than that, though, he's a great quarterback.
Who's the second best quarterback in this division, Chase?
Um,
There we go. That's a good one.
yeah, Kirk Cousins.
You have Cousins, Fields, Dalton, and Jared Goff.
Yeah, Jared Goff is probably the 4th or 5th best quarterback in this league.
See how when we had the Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones argument, it was you couldn't go wrong with either one because they were they're both top 7 or whatever. But with the quarterback argument after Aaron Rodgers, then 3, 4, 5, 6 are all in like the bottom tier of the NFL. So really just take your pick. Kirk Cousins is the second best. Then after that, it really doesn't matter. Andy Dalton, give him a run for his money.
Might have something to say about that this year.
Don't get me started. The Red Rockets, he's ready to go, dude.
This is Andy Dalton. Andy Rocket. This is his last time to shine. And, people forget what he did in Cincinnati. He was a pretty solid quarterback. And, they've got a decent receiver core. They've got decent running backs. They have a good defense. I think Dalton will. I do think Kirk Cousins will have a better year than what, win-loss wise than what he had. But I don't think it's that clear cut that Cousins is the second best in this.
I don't see Andy Dalton having a very long leash. Don't know why that was so hard to say, but Justin Fields, which little caveat on that. Did you guys see that he talked about how he didn't think the speed of the game was that fast, and then the next week got smoked right in the face? That's just kind of like instant.
Well, when nobody blocks the guy, nobody was blocking him at all.
Yeah,
I mean, but he learned a lesson real quick that
karma.
The game is a little fast.
Karma is, you know what it is. It's a bitch.
So
it's 1,000,000-0.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. Andy Dalton is better than most people give him credit for. That being said, if the Bears are if Matt Nagy has any shred of football intelligence in him, Andy Dalton won't be their starting quarterback very long. The Bears have one of the worst offensive lines in football. One way to alleviate that problem is RPOs. You basically can let one guy run free. You have one less guy to block. Instead of blocking 5-on-5, you're blocking 5-on-4. And who can run a lot of RPOs is Justin Fields. Andy Dalton cannot run any RPOs. So if there's any shred of intelligence in Matt Nagy, Justin Fields will be their quarterback by week 4.
It's going to depend on how they do. I think the Bears can win some games this year. If they're in the hunt 5-3, 8 games through the year, Andy Dalton is not getting benched. And 5-3 is a very, very gettable record for them.
I just don't get how you trade
Didn't they start
up.
5-0 last year?
I just don't get how you trade up for with Trubisky. I don't get how you trade up for Justin Fields and then decide that he shouldn't start.
We didn't know this when the Chiefs drafted Mahomes. I don't think very many people knew this. They knew going into week 1 that Mahomes was the guy that year, but they chose not to play him. They had to have seen that talent in all the practices, all the OTAs, all the training camp, everything. They had to see that.
Did you see the story that came out a couple weeks ago? The Chiefs almost started Patrick Mahomes over Alex Smith. They were very close to doing it.
That's
and
what
they
I'm
decided,
saying.
We'll give Alex one more year.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's not necessarily a bad thing for the Bears to start Dalton. I'm pretty high on Dalton compared to most people. I think Justin Fields can be that guy, but there's no sense in they're not winning the Super Bowl. So there's no sense in rushing him out there and getting him hurt like Joe Burrow did last year, unfortunately.
And you guys
question,
mentioned it, though. The offensive line isn't very good. So why you don't rush a rookie quarterback into that?
Honest question, though. Who do they have a better chance of making it to the playoffs and being successful with? Justin Fields or Andy Dalton?
I mean, pretty close.
I think Andy Dalton's more than capable of taking a team to the playoffs.
One of the hottest coaching seats in the NFL this year has got to be the Bears. Nagy has to be coaching for his career at this point because
I used to try and stick up for Nagy, but at this point it's hard to do.
They're gonna try to shove a knife in him no matter what he chooses.
Well,
I mean, he's in a tough spot.
I was going to say this earlier too. Is the Bears are looking for a reason to put Justin. Like that's the thing is they've announced Andy Dalton as their starter. They're going to roll with him 1 week, 8 weeks, 17 weeks. We don't know. But the second they lose 2 in a row and Andy Dalton throws 5 interceptions, if he has a bad game like that, the organization isn't going to be able to live without. Like the Bears fans will burn down Soldier Field. Bears fans are very high on Fields, and they're
if
just
they
looking
don't knock
for
it down first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whether Mahomes started his first year or not, he didn't. So the Bears, if they're smart, they're going to follow that blueprint. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was the same way. They're going to follow that blueprint. They're not going to rush Fields out there. Dalton, I don't feel like Dalton will play that crappy enough to where they'll just yank him. I see this being, week 14, crap. We were in the playoff hunt most of the year. Now we're out of it. Let's see what we got in Fields. That's kind of how I see this season going.
I see what you're saying, and they might do that. I think the biggest difference is you're comparing Andy Dalton and Alex Smith. One, Alex Smith's better than Andy Dalton, and two,
I mean,
Chiefs had some reason to have some allegiance to Alex Smith. Alex Smith took us from the dumpster fire of the NFL to one of the most competitive teams in the NFL. Bears have no
Andy
allegiance to
Dalton
Andy
was
Dalton.
just almost as competitive as Alex Smith was in Cincinnati. He made the playoffs.
But I'm saying he hasn't. Well, one, no, he hasn't.
They're not that far apart of quarterbacks.
And two, it doesn't matter. He didn't do anything in Chicago. Like he hasn't done anything for the
No,
city
but
of
that's why they
Chicago.
brought him in.
That's why they brought him in.
If they didn't want him to be the guy to make a playoff push, they wouldn't have brought him in.
And I said I understand what you guys are saying, but what I'm saying is the Bears have no allegiance to Andy Dalton. They have Justin Fields, who they just traded up to draft. There's a big difference between where Kansas City's situation was with Alex Smith and where the Bears are with Andy Dalton.
They do
I'm
have
not comparing it to Kansas City at all.
Tyler just did.
You brought up
I
Alex
did
Smith.
not.
They do have allegiance to him because they brought him in to be his mentor. That is their allegiance to him.
They brought him in before they traded up to draft him.
That was their plan all along, though. They didn't just decide on draft day they were going to trade up. That was planned way before.
They got him for a safe number 2. That's really what they got him for.
Yeah, they got Andy Dalton as a backup, not as a starter. Andy Dalton will not start 17 games this year.
He probably won't be starting week 2.
That's what I said. Week 4 will be Justin Fields.
Pretty sure they're just scared of Aaron Donald for a good reason.
Yeah, I would be too.
Bench is 500
to
pounds.
Move on. To move on, we're going to do wide receiver, and then we'll get to division winners. Wide receivers in the NFC North. There's a guy floating around at number 2 that you could make probably some arguments for, but I think it's Davante Adams. And yes, he does have Aaron Rodgers throwing to him, but Davante Adams put up some crazy numbers last year in a 16-game season. He had 115 receptions for 1,374 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's a pretty darn good year. And I just don't see any wide receiver touching that in the NFC North, maybe even in a 17-game season.
This is not why I brought up the power rankings versus where we think they'll finish argument, but this is similar right here. Is week 1, Davante Adams is that dude. Week 17, it's going to be Jefferson. Signed, stamped, sealed, mark it down here. This is Justin Jefferson's breakout year.
Justin Jefferson's the guy, then. You would choose Justin Jefferson.
I'm saying by week 17, he will be that guy.
I have Jefferson at 3rd on mine.
So this division actually has a lot of good receivers. Allen Robinson. This division has a lot of really good receivers in Adams, Jefferson, Robinson, and even Thielen's really good. From what we've seen, I think Allen Robinson's probably the most underappreciated receiver in the NFL, to be honest. Like, I don't know why.
He's top tier.
He's very good. I don't know why people hate on him so much. Like Jacksonville. If Jacksonville had any, I don't know. I mean, they blew up their whole team, but why did they let him go? And then
Allen Robinson was elite with Mitch Trubisky throwing to him. That says something.
He might be the best route runner in the NFL, to be honest. Like his ability, him and Keenan Allen's ability to get separation from guys is insane. But I mean, I would probably lean toward Davante Adams, and then Justin Jefferson's right behind him too.
I mean, it says a lot about Davante Adams when you forget guys like Allen Robinson and Adam Thielen. Adams overshadows him. I think Davante Adams right now is the best receiver in the NFL. 18 touchdowns. I mean, he commands double teams. I mean, look at the rest of that receiving core. It's not that great. They really don't have a solid number 2, and he still puts up those numbers. So, to me, Davante is the best receiver in the NFL. But, yeah, Allen Robinson deserves his kudos. It's going to be a recreation of Red Rocket and A.J. Green this year with Allen Robinson.
Oh, man.
You say Red Rocket one more time, I'm muting you the rest of it.
Who you got?
Red Rocket.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go with Davante Adams. If he's not the best receiver in the league, then he's the second. Allen Robinson's a top 5 receiver, though. I don't think anyone catches in close quarters like he does. Reminds me kind of Antonio Brown back when he, played on the Steelers and didn't complain about helmets.
I actually almost made that exact comparison. He is kind of like a step under Antonio Brown, but he plays a lot like him. His ability to get separation and catch the ball in traffic.
So we're going
Yeah,
to
I
run
don't
through
think
division
Jefferson
winners.
Jefferson's top 3 though.
Who you got
I think
3?
you got to go with Thielen as the 3rd best receiver there. Yeah.
We're going to run through division winners real quick, just because I know the AFC North is going to be probably a longer segment. Just preface this by saying the NFC North does play the NFC West and the AFC North, so they got kind of a tough draw. But does anybody not have the Packers winning the NFC North?
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think they're going to have some competition this year, unlike last year. Like you said, they have not only have to play the NFC West and the AFC North, they also have to play the winners. They have to play the Saints, which the Saints won their division, so they kind of caught a break there.
They caught a break there with the Saints and the football team.
And Washington, yeah, they did catch a break there. But, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I think they're going to have some competition. I do see the Packers winning by 1 or 2 games, but the Vikings or the Bears, one of them is going to step up this year. One of those teams. It's not going to be Packers and then everybody else this year.
So I'm going to be honest, I didn't look at the schedule or anything, but judging by how I had teams ranked, I thought I would say the Packers would win the division and then they would have a wild card team. But since they play the NFC West and the AFC North, there's no wild card team in this division. It's the Packers win the division, and that's the only team making the playoffs.
Yeah, I also, same exact thing. Did not look at the schedule. I was going to say Packers win the division, Bears make the wild card. Playing NFC West, AFC North. You're exactly right. One playoff team out of the NFC North.
So I do think it's good value, though. So obviously, I think the Packers do win the NFC North. But the Bears at 7.5 on the over-under, I kind of like that. Like, I can see 8 wins, 9 wins out of the Bears, and I don't think that gets you a wild card this year because the NFC West might be taking 4 teams to the playoffs. But, 8 or 9, I can see value in that. 7.5, I think, is low for
What's
a
the
win
Vikings
total.
over under? Do you know?
8.5.
Oh, that's too high.
It's right there at it.
If Kirk Cousins can figure out how to beat, he's like 5-23 against teams with winning records. If he can turn that around this year, that's my only dispute on Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback, but you have to have a better record against good teams to be considered top notch. If that's a fluke and he can somehow reverse that, I could see the Vikings winning this division. They stomped the Packers last year. The Packers had no answer for Dalvin Cook. I could see that happening. Chase?
Yeah, I actually did look at the schedules. And I put the Packers going 14-3. And then following that, I put the Vikings going 7-10 along with the Bears. and then I gave the Lions 2 games, but it could be 0.
Yeah, they could be praying for a win in Week 17.
Yeah.
Feeling generous. Who do the Lions play in Week 17? Will it be the Packers when everyone's sitting?
The real question for the Lions is how many kneecaps are they going to bust this year? What's the over-under on that?
Did you guys see? This is crazy. The Lions, for their game the other day, their Twitter account had a picture of their coach as like most teams have like a player. They had a picture of their coach walking into the locker room. I don't remember what it said, but everyone was making fun of it. It blew up because everyone's like, yeah, they don't have anyone on their team, so they have this guy who's breaking kneecaps as their picture on their Twitter.
I mean, it would be a bad time to be a Detroit fan right now. Lions suck, Tigers suck, Pistons suck. Like,
it's bad.
Ugh, yikes. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for the NFC North. We're going to head over to the AFC North, where I'm sure we'll get some more discussion. But we're going to start out with, man, I don't see one that's very easy to start out with. This is probably the easiest. We're going to start out in defense. And we're going to save these 2 guys over here for last because we know what their answer is going to be. But I'll just go ahead and go. I think the Steelers also have the best defense in the AFC North. They up front, they're monsters. Minka Fitzpatrick is a monster. Like, they're just good all around, and I don't see that changing. So I think the Steelers have the best defense.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some pretty good defenses in the AFC North. Steelers are, I'm not going to say far and away the best. I think they're the best defense. They're like, just echoing everything you said, Carl. They're really good up front. Minka Fitzpatrick gets a lot of credit, and I still don't think it's enough. That dude is a ball hawk. He's just really, really good. He's my favorite Steeler to watch. And so I think best defense division. I think that's going to help him out in the long run too.
So don't get used to this. I know everyone calls me a homer, and everyone says I hate the Steelers. Minka Fitzpatrick is what people think Honey Badger is, and I love Honey Badger. I love Tyrann Mathieu. Minka Fitzpatrick is better than Tyrann Mathieu. He is such a ball hawk. It's not even funny. It's insane how the dude plays. That's one. I love Tyrann Mathieu. I think he's huge for our defense, and he's big for us. But Minka Fitzpatrick is a better player than Tyrann Mathieu is. The Steelers' defense is the best in the division. The Browns' defense will be better this year, but it's not as good as everyone thought last year. They were like a 20th ranked
They gave
defense
up like
last year.
470 points last
Yeah.
year.
So the Browns' defense, they made some improvements. Their D-line definitely got better. I think they'll be better. And the Ravens' defense is always a top 10 defense, but the Steelers probably have a top 3 defense. They might not finish that way, but they're talent-wise, they're a top 3 defense. They're a very good defense in Pittsburgh.
The Ravens do have a very good cornerback crew. So
When
Very
healthy-
good. And
when
very
healthy.
ball hawk cornerback crew, too. They can create a lot of turnovers.
Jimmy Smith has problems staying healthy. If he didn't, that guy's maybe the best cornerback in the league. But, the only problem I see with Pittsburgh's defense is exactly what happened to him last year. Depth. Once you get past the starters, the Steelers play a certain kind of defense. They're creative. They do a lot of exotic stuff. Replacements don't really do very well in that. They rely on a lot of talent. And if injuries pile up again for him this year, then you could see him fall off again at the end of the year. The Ravens, on the other hand, play a very simple style defense. And it seems like it doesn't matter who they plug in there, does the job. And so going into any year in the last 15 years, you can say Pittsburgh or Baltimore. I mean, you might be right. So it's definitely not out of the question that Baltimore has a better defense. Steelers have more star power, that's for sure. They make more plays. But as far as no team is as sound and solid defensively as Baltimore Ravens year in, year out.
The only thing I don't like about Baltimore, and maybe it's because I've watched them get torched by the Chiefs so many times, is they keep doing the same thing. They blitz and
They stick to
play
their
man
gun.
on the outside. They stick to it, and even when the Chiefs are torching them, they stick to it. Why? Like, you're down by 20 points. Maybe you should try something a little bit different here.
because you're winning 13 games a year. I mean,
Yeah, but you're not winning the big games. Like, the Chiefs are their biggest
Yeah.
competition right now, and they keep doing the same thing against the Chiefs every
Yeah.
year.
Remember that though later when we talk about
Hey,
records.
what if
and not
Kelsey?
winning the
What if Harbaugh's watching this right now? Shut up, okay? Maybe you're going to give him an idea he's never thought of before.
Chase, I assume we can guess where you're going with this.
Yeah.
He's gonna take off the Minka Fitzpatrick jersey and throw on a Marcus Peters jersey.
Yeah, the Steelers are the best defense in this division if they're healthy, that is, just as Kyler said. Towards the end of the year last year, I would say the Browns and the Ravens had a better defense than us at the end of the year. So it's all going to depend on if we have our linebackers healthy and our DBs. And, I think we'll probably have the best defense in this league.
Notice how nobody mentioned the Bengals. Poor Joe Burrow.
And the
Well, they
Bengals
have a really
defense
bad
is not terrible either. It's
It's
going to
not,
be
it's not.
decent. It's just not on par with the Ravens and Steelers.
It'll be top 20.
So I think this next category is the second least non-controversial one. So defense, is pretty unanimous. Running back. Going to go to running
I
back.
think this is the least controversial. I think this is an easy answer.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, but
there's
I can
two
see
right
somebody.
answers.
I can see.
Tyler can probably say
some-
something really stupid,
Okay,
but it's
I'll
Nick
start.
Chubb, and it's
No.
not a question.
I can see some people trying to say Harris.
Nick Chubb is the best runner in this division. And he doesn't get, he's the best because he averaged 5.6 yards per carry. I mean, he also has the best offensive line. Joe Mixon is just as good as these guys. He's just as good. He's had some injury problems last year, but even on a bad team, he's been productive. Joe Mixon can do it all. I think there's secretly a lot of good running back talent in this group. It's not, you got.
I don't think it's a secret.
Well,
You got 2 in Cleveland. Harris is going to be decent, and then
Najee
Mixon.
Harris is the real deal, but you can't put him up there with them before he's done it.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I think week 17 we might be reevaluating this. I think Chubb still be number 1 at the end of the year. So what I was saying is, if Chubb got an injury week 1, I think Kareem Hunt's still the best running back in the league week 2. But Joe Mixon's good. I think Harris is going to show us what he's all about. Not very long into the year. It's not going to take him long to do it. And that's something the Steelers are really missing. So I think they will use him effectively. But he hasn't taken an NFL snap yet in a regular season game. So you can't put him up there yet because he hasn't done anything. But and then Joe Mixon's really good. He's really, really good. He has no offensive line. I think the 5 of us maybe be able to do a better job than their offensive line.
They did
They're
restructure.
closer to Joe Thomas than we are to their offensive line.
They did restructure their offensive line, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But as far as fantasy goes, you may not pick a Browns running back above Najee or Joe Mixon because they split. It's like 50-50. Najee is going to get the full workload. He's going to be the Le'Veon Bell.
I'm glad you brought that up because you know what the highest Joe Mixon's ever finished in fantasy is as a running back?
I don't.
Running back number 12. And Nick Chubb is a top 5 running back. There's no debate here. Even with Kareem Hunt being in the backfield with him, Nick Chubb's the best running back in the division. Kareem Hunt might be the second best running back in the division.
How many games did Joe Mixon play when he finished top 12, though? He hasn't played a full season. 207
best career best year, 278 carries, 1137 yards. Best year for
how many games played is
Chubb, 298. I'm telling you carries. I mean, 273 to 298, and there's a 400-yard difference in where they finished in yards.
Yeah, and the offensive lines are glaring. I'm talking about strictly running back talent. The difference between those O-lines are pretty glaring.
So the ceiling for Joe Mixon is about 10th or 11th best running back. The ceiling for Nick Chubb is the best running back in the NFL.
I think Mixon's better than that. Chase?
I'm not trying to disagree on how good Chubb is. Chubb is amazing. But he's also got Kareem Hunt, Baker Mayfield.
Wait, you guys hate on Baker Mayfield nonstop. Now he's got
Baker Mayfield's good. He's not an elite player like everyone else thinks. They would be better off with 10 other quarterbacks in this league, maybe 15. But Baker Mayfield is more than capable. They've got OBJ and Jarvis Landry. So 2 top-tier running backs, 2 top-tier wide receivers.
OBJ hasn't been healthy. You can't count him.
But when he's on the field, he's a threat.
But he hasn't been on the field.
The main difference between the Browns and Bengals is the O-line. That is the main difference. And yes, Chubb is better than Mixon.
The Bengals have a great receiving crew, and they had a great rookie quarterback until he got injured. I'll tell you about his projected 16-game stats in just a second.
Okay, Chase, go ahead. Get in there.
Yeah, so I probably agree more with Kelsey than anyone else here, but I think the best 2 running backs are on the Browns. I don't think that's even a question in this league. Mostly because and J.K. Dobbins, they haven't really got their feet grounded yet. I expect
Dobbins is injured. He's out for the season.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I expect the Ravens running game to be the second best behind the Browns this season. Until I see our offensive line perform well, which I just don't see that happening anytime soon. So they're gonna have to prove it to me.
How did we forget about
Lamar Jackson?
The former MVP running back, Lamar Jackson.
The only other person in the AFC North to run for 1,000 yards last year, and nobody brought him up one time.
I gave Josh Allen the credit.
Trying to make a case for Joe Mixon.
I think it's all because we know what would happen if Lamar Jackson played running back. And he
doesn't have
those tackles.
He throws and runs.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're gonna slide over to wide receiver. Yeah, who wants to hit that topic? I can see this going a couple different directions.
So I'll hit it. I'm going. There's literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 10 receivers you could name in this division, and that's not the Steelers. You don't even know who their best receiver is. They're all three pretty close. The Bengals have 3 guys that are pretty close. The Browns have 2 guys that could be close if OBJ stays healthy, and then the Ravens. I think the Ravens receiving core is a little worse than the other 3, but Marquise Brown has a lot of upside, and Sammy Watkins, we know what he can do. Um, I, I, I honestly don't even know who to pick as the best receiver in this division. There could be 10 different guys that could finish as the best receiver in this division. It's probably the most difficult question we've had out of all the divisions.
So the best answer is no answer. Give
Yeah,
us one.
don't put money on it.
There's a lot of.
If I had to put money on it, I would say. I guess I'd say Higgins in Cincinnati.
There's a lot of talent at receiver. There's just not really anybody that stepped up to be top tier.
Yeah,
That's
there's no
separated
top tier talent.
themselves.
There's a lot of good talent, but no top tier talent.
I think, and I think you can argue for Juju just because this dude, I mean, he came into the league. I don't think Juju will be the best receiver at the end of the year. I think as of right now, you can speak to Juju because he does what his team asks. He moved into the slot, does the dirty work, he blocks. I don't even think on his team, I think he has the 3rd most potential. But I do like what Juju brings to the table as far as unselfishness and willing to block downfield. OBJ is probably the most talented in this group, but Chase Claypool is right behind him, and so is Tyler Boyd, and so is T. Higgins, and so is Jamar Chase. He's a rookie, but
I would
Claypool
throw
is-
Landry's right there too.
Landry's solid, but as far as top end potential, he doesn't have potential as Chase Claypool, Jamar Chase, or OBJ. He's a possession. He does his job, and he stays healthy doing it.
I really like. So, I have to watch some Steelers games just because of where I live. I like what Chase Claypool does on the field. That guy is athletic. He's freaking fast. He can go get balls.
Physical.
Like, he's huge for one. Like, I really like his build. I like his kit. Like, that's the type of wide receiver I would want on my team, is that guy right there. Because I've always had an affinity for people like that. Your Larry Fitzgerald type guys. And I'm not comparing him to Larry Fitzgerald, just pump the brakes a little bit. But that size of wide receiver, I've always enjoyed watching those guys.
Alvin Johnson kind of guy than Larry Fitzgerald. His natural athleticism is. I don't know why. I have more faith in Kyler. I don't think Juju's the best receiver in the division, but I do like what Juju does. I have more faith in Juju and Deontay Johnson than I do Chase Claypool. And I don't know why. Like, Claypool's a freak athlete, but I just don't have faith in him right now. I don't know.
I think by the end of this year, Claypool separates himself from the rest of the receivers.
You guys just segued me perfectly into my my talk here, my TED talk. Right now, Jarvis Landry is the best wide receiver in the division. Right behind him is Juju, the dude from Cincinnati. I'm having a brain fart.
Tyler Boyd,
Higgins, and Boyd's right there. There's a bunch of good guys. Solid. I put Juju at second. I put Higgins and Boyd right behind that. Marquise Brown is very, very good. I think he'll have a better year this year. But like I said, week 1, it's Jarvis Landry, Juju Smith-Schuster. Week 17, it is Chase Claypool. That guy. So last year, he had big games and non-existent games. It didn't seem like there was any in between, really. I think whenever he figures out some consistency in his game, he is going to be a monster.
So I think the biggest reason why I don't have faith in Claypool is because he has Roethlisberger throwing the ball, and Roethlisberger doesn't throw the ball over 5 yards.
We'll get to that. Just
time out.
Come on now. All right, Chase.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like Odell. I think you kind of shortchanged him when you said there's no tier 1 receivers, because Odell was by far a tier 1 receiver I know being at the Browns, they've kind of taken the workload off him, put it on Jarvis Landry. But Jarvis, I kind of see as that Juju role that took place when Antonio Brown was over there too. I think Odell's the best receiver in our division. I'm not saying he's going to finish with the most yards. He probably won't get targeted the most. But I think it goes Odell, then Jarvis. And after that, I'd probably say Tyler Boyd.
I think if Odell stays healthy, you're on the same, but he just hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years. Has been his problem.
Yeah,
He's not been on the field.
Talent-wise, I don't think.
I think at one time, Odell, his first few years, he had a case to be made. Like, his career could have been exponent. Like, there was no ceiling on it, but it's just, we haven't seen that.
OBJ has the highest ceiling of what a receiver can do this season. Maybe not career as it sits right now, but this season, OBJ has the highest ceiling of anybody there. I just don't think he gets there because he's.
And we're talking about the Bengals. We're talking about the Bengals. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go, Kelsey. I'm not saying anything.
We're talking about the Bengals receivers, and they just drafted Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. One of them might be the third best receiver on the team at the end of the year. Like, I don't even know where to start in this division with receivers.
Someone needs to separate themselves, and someone will, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's OBJ's ceiling. The problem is injuries. In New York, he did really well, but he had a washed up Eli Manning throwing him the ball. Like, he could have been even better.
They were also not competing in any of their games, so there's still a question mark about OBJ. He's the most talented so far, but honestly, the Browns have played better without him. So it's going to be. I don't know how many targets he gets this year. That's a run-happy team.
And he's somewhat of a diva, too.
So here's what OBJ can do. His rookie year, he played 12 games, had 1,300 yards. Second year, played 15 games, had 1,450 yards. Third year, played 16 games, had 1,267 yards. Problem is, last year, he played 7 games. The year before that, he had a 1,000-yard season. And the year before that, he played 12 games and had a 1,000-yard season. Like, his ceiling is through the roof, but is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to play 16 games? The year before that, he played 4 games. He had that injury at the beginning of the season. Like,
yeah, we'll see. But we're going to move on to the person that's throwing those guys the ball, and this is going to get stupid, just as a warning. So we're going to go on to quarterbacks in the AFC North, and we'll leave Kyler for last. And I really don't want to pick on Chase first. So, Cody, you want to do a quarterback first?
Yeah. Lamar Jackson's the best, former MVP. I'm not huge on Lamar. I think he's really, really good. I'm not sure he's built to win the big games. But he's the most talented. After that, it's Ben Roethlisberger. It's gonna be Joe Burrow if the Bengals can keep him healthy, and then it's Baker Mayfield in 4th place. But I was looking at Ben Roethlisberger's stats because I was gearing up to defend everyone else in this division over the onslaught that's about to come on why Ben Roethlisberger is the best. And I got to say, Ben Roethlisberger, he was pretty damn good last year with
but
no offensive line.
The Steelers also had the most pass attempts in the league last year.
He was 3rd in pass attempts out of all quarterbacks. Don't worry, I'll get to that.
Well, what else were they supposed to do? You going to hand the ball off to Connor?
No, your stats are inflated when you have the 3rd most pass attempts.
Ben Roethlisberger's been really, really good for a really, really long time. That's all there is to it. I'm not counting him out yet. And apparently he's done in the offseason this year what he needed to do to be ready to play this year. He was fat and out of shape last year and still had a pretty good year. So no matter how many times he threw the ball.
Yeah, and then I'll let all the brothers go last on this one. So I'm actually, I'm going to say that this is the guy who I think will have the best season this year. The guy who has the best season this year is Baker Mayfield. Stefanski for the full year, and he's head coaching's only going to get better about how they want to distribute that ball. We've already talked about that run game and the pressure that's going to take off of him. This is his boom or bust year, right? And I do think he's going to boom just with the weapons that he has. He's got a serviceable defense. Got some really good guys up front on that defense. Like, I can see it being a good year for Baker Mayfield. Now, talent-wise, I don't think he's at the top, talent-wise. Right now, I would say that's Lamar Jackson, talent-wise. But I do think Baker Mayfield has the best year of any quarterback in the AFC North this year. And now you guys can go.
Chase, who's the best quarterback in the division?
Lamar Jackson.
Oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he, the last couple of years, he's performed a lot better than the other quarterbacks in the league. I think the other three quarterbacks are a lot closer, though, in my opinion. I could see Burrow doing better than Ben or Baker this year. I wouldn't put him. I would probably put him fourth now until he's proved himself. But I think it's up for grabs who's the second best quarterback in the division. Baker has been okay, and Ben has been not as good. Whether it's for other reasons or not, doesn't matter. But yeah, Lamar Jackson's the best. He throws him off with the athleticism that he has, and he throws the ball very accurately, short down the field. So it's really unstoppable until they get behind, and then they have too short of a. They go down the field too slowly. That's the problem with the Ravens.
So obviously Kyler wants to go last. So I looked up a few different things coming into this because I knew Kyler would come in here with all kinds of Ben Roethlisberger stats. So what I did was I took every quarterback and
Carl's gearing up.
like I averaged only one quarterback played 16 games last year. So I put them all and made their stats so that if they played 16 games, what they would be. And surprisingly, Joe Burrow had the best season statistically. 4,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Ben was second with 4,057 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. If you go change it to a 16-game season. Ben had the third most pass attempts. What would you expect the quarterback with the third most pass attempts to finish in yards? Because he finished 16th in yards. That's just not very good. So in QBR, Lamar Jackson was 7th in total QBR. Baker Mayfield was 10th. Ben Roethlisberger was 22nd. Joe Burrow was 24th. Kyler's going to talk about Ben Roethlisberger's stats, but empty stats are empty stats.
Kind of like QBR.
QBR is like the best way to grade a quarterback.
That is okay.
Quarterback rating is a bad way to grade a quarterback. QBR is a good way to rate because they take into account what in the situation is in the game. Lamar Jackson's probably the best quarterback in this division. Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback in this division this year, though. And the Browns are gonna be the most successful. So we're gonna say Baker had a successful year. Ben Roethlisberger might be the worst quarterback in the division this year, to be honest.
Okay, so now that terrible takes over, let's.
Yeah, hang on. Air freshener. That takes down.
Yeah, that was. So you're talking about, okay, I'm not even gonna say it. First off, this is one of the first. This division, I'll just say this, has had a lot of. This is why this is one of the better divisions in the NFL, because there's not clear-cut people in every team that's the best in the division. Second off, Lamar Jackson is really flashy. He puts up good numbers. But when you look at the numbers over the last 2 full seasons, and you compare Lamar Jackson and Big Ben, and you hear all this blasphemy that people talk on Big Ben that don't even watch the Steelers games, and then they hype this Lamar Jackson up, you think their numbers would be a lot different, but when really they're not. Big Ben's last 2 full seasons, 66% completion rating, Lamar 65. Total yards, rushing and passing. Big Ben, 8,932. Lamar Jackson, 8,095. Almost a 900-yard difference. Touchdowns. Big Ben, 70 total touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 76. And I will also say that with this, the Steelers will not QB sneak on the goal line. The Ravens will. And I'm sure
that's sweet.
Exactly. Thank you for making that point. Big Ben,
Lamar's more versatile. Okay.
Big Ben, no, the Steelers just will not sneak Big Ben because they think he'll get hurt, which I disagree with. Either way, 6
He's hurt all the
touchdown
time.
difference. Cool.
He's
26
injured all the
interceptions.
time.
26 interceptions to 15 interceptions for Lamar. Interception rate, Lamar is at 2.2, Big Ben is at 2.0. Fumbles, Lamar Jackson has 19, Big Ben has 10. So when you add up all those numbers, they're very similar. But listening to you talk about them would make me think, or anybody else believe, that Lamar is way up here compared to Big Ben. You guys are sleeping on Big Ben, and you will see it during the season.
So who's the best quarterback in the division, Kyler?
So I just threw out all these numbers, pretty equal, right? So I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite. I think Joe Burrow has a chance to be the best quarterback this season. I think Baker Mayfield is the worst quarterback in this division, but Carl is right. He could have the best season because he has the best support out of any team when it comes to O-line, rushing attack, receivers. Considerable advantage there. Lamar, obviously, he's an MVP. He could have the best season. Big Ben could have the best season. But out of all those 4 quarterbacks, my tiebreaker is 2 minutes left in the game. You're down 3 points. Who do you want out of all 4 of those guys? You want Big Ben.
Probably
Even
Lamar
at this
Jackson.
age.
And then Baker Mayfield next.
Lamar
to
Jackson?
Kyler's
If you
point,
said- if you
you
said
want the
down
guy
two
that's been
Lamar
there and
Jackson?
done that.
If you said down 2 touchdowns, I'd agree with you. But why would I not want the most electric guy in the NFL with the ball with only need a field goal? I would definitely take Lamar
To
Jackson.
Kyler's point, you want the guy that's been there, done that. I mean, the NFL has proven that.
Lamar
time and time
Jackson
again.
has to play from ahead. He has to.
Kyler,
When he plays
in
from
the-
behind, he is not the same quarterback.
Kyler, you're correct when they're down multiple scores. When they're down a field goal, that's not playing from behind. That's being right in the game.
You have
There's a
one
big difference
drive
between-
where you need a quarterback in this division, and you're taking Lamar Jackson.
If you were down 14 at half, yes, you would take.
You need
anyone.
one drive. One drive.
If you were down 14 at half, you would take anyone over Lamar Jackson because he's not capable of bringing you back.
One drive.
You would take Lamar. You take the best player in the division.
Base. Who would you take one drive to get you
Nope.
to the playoffs?
Nobody would take Ben
I
Roethlisberger
think
now. He threw the ball
the
5
only
yards
two-
an attempt.
The only 2 quarterbacks I would question would be Burrow and Roethlisberger at this point. I feel like Burrow is going to be a guy that's going to make big plays. He showed it in college. He made the SEC look like cupcakes, and it was easy. I think Roethlisberger's the only guy that showed that he can do it. I don't think Baker has. I don't think Lamar has at this point.
The only thing
Go
I would
ahead,
say
John.
about your take on Burrow is it's hard to compare it in college. Like LSU was light years above every team they played that year. You know what I mean? Like,
But I mean, he's the guy that got there and made Alabama look like it was easy to play against, and no other team did.
but look how many NFL receivers. Justin Jefferson just came off a 1,400-yard season or whatever. Like, I mean, when you have that much talent on your team, it's a little. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in his backfield, and I mean it.
But he was very cool, calm, and collected. He
How
was
many
also a
years?
little older.
Hold on. How many years has LSU had all those playmakers and their quarterback can't do diddly squat? A lot of years. Same with
Yeah,
Florida.
I think Burrow's a great quarterback. I'm just saying I don't think saying he did it in college is a translation to what he can do in the NFL.
But he didn't
I
just
think
do it in
Burrow's
college.
going to be a beast.
In college,
Yeah,
though, he didn't just win games. He was far and above quarterbacks we've seen do it towards the end of the season like that. I mean, make an argument for Trevor Lawrence that he came in and did it too, but Burrow came in and made it look like it was easy to win in the SEC. Trevor Lawrence never played in the SEC.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think Burrow's a beast, but go look at. I mean, his
Carl,
receivers
who would you take?
are above everyone.
With one drive needed to win the game, I would take Roethlisberger because he's been there, done that. And I think in those situations, Brady has proved it how many damn times you need a been there, done that guy. And that's just kind of, it is what it is.
I just want to, before we finish this, I think Ben Roethlisberger is a top.
Keep in
15
mind that the
quarterback in
season
league.
does start
I just
here
like
in a
getting you
few
guys
days.
worked up.
All right, so we're going to move on to division winner, and I'm sure this is going to get some controversy too. I can assume that we're all going to pick the Bengals last, and that's about the only assumption that I will make in this division. So Chase, who do you have winning the AFC North?
I got the Steelers winning, mostly because of the way they play against their division. I could see the Steelers losing against the worst team they play and beating the best team they play. That's how it happens most of the time with their chemistry they got. I guess they just play down below the worst, and then if they have a big game, they play up to it. When it comes to division games, they have a winning record typically in our division. With Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, we finished 3-3 in the division. And then last year we finished 4-2. We lost to the Bengals. We beat the Ravens twice. We beat the Browns very easily. I think that was early, like week 3 or 4 last year. And then we lost with Mason Rudolph as our starter in the final game of the season. I feel like it's going to be close between the Browns, Ravens, and the Steelers. And if it comes down to who won head to head, we're most likely going to win that head to head.
The AFC North does play the NFC North and the AFC West this year. Just
right
out of fairness, I have been saying it for every division. So
Okay.
How many teams do you have coming in the playoffs out of that division, Chase?
I think I'm going to go with the Steelers and then a wild card, and the Ravens
Do you
as
think
the
the
wild
Browns
card.
will be left out?
I think the Browns will be left out. Yeah. I think the Ravens will beat the Browns head to head when they play, and I think we'll beat the Ravens, and I think we'll beat the Browns too. I think the thing that scares me the most is the out of conference games. We don't play well out of conference typically. At the start of last year we did, and it really just depends on whether we're on a streak or not. So it's anyone's ball game in those three.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I think this.
Go ahead, Carl.
I think this is the division that 3 teams make it to the playoffs out of. There's 7 teams going to the playoffs this year again, and I really do think this is that division. So when you look at the other divisions, we covered the AFC East, not much there. We covered the AFC South. You've got the Titans, and then Colts quarterback situation, the guys getting hurt and stuff. It's kind of like eh. And then obviously the AFC West, you've got 1, and then Chargers maybe 2. So this is the division where you could see 3 teams coming out. So that's a benefit, but it doesn't help when you try to pick a division winner. So Vegas has the Ravens at 11, the Browns at 10.5, the Steelers at 8.5, and the Bengals at 6.5. I see that Bengals number being pretty competitive, and I do think the Steelers win 9 games and go just above 500 and keep their streak alive. But I do see the Browns winning this division, and it is going to be competitive. I don't doubt that one bit, and people are going to take games off each other. But like I said earlier, the guy who I think is going to have the breakout or the biggest year is going to be Mayfield, and I think that gets the Browns over the hump, and like a 12-win season, and you win a division at 12, with the Ravens coming in second.
Yeah, echo what everybody else said. This division is going to be ultra competitive. The 3 teams finished within a game of each other last year. Steelers at 12-4, Ravens and Browns at 11-5. I don't see any reason that's going to. The win and loss total is going to change, but the overall competitiveness is not. So you had a team last year who scored the second most points in the division and had the second best defense points allowed in the division, and they were crippled with injuries all year long. And they ended up winning the division. I can't bet against that. Steelers going to win the division. Ravens and Browns both make the playoffs. They're both too good not to. You're looking at 3 10-win teams again. But it's all barring injury. It just Lamar Jackson gets hurt, Baker Mayfield gets hurt, Ben Roethlisberger gets hurt, any other receivers get hurt. It changes the entire dynamic. But that's pro sports. But everyone's healthy, looking into the future. Steelers win the division. Ravens and Browns both make one.
So, I mean, everyone's already said it. It's gonna be a competitive division. I do think The Browns improved the most probably in the offseason, adding some pieces to that defense. And then they also, like Kyler was talking about earlier, schedule. They get the luck of playing the third-ranked teams in the division. So they play the Jaguars and I guess it'd be New England. You guys think New England will be good? I don't think New England will be good. So the Browns have the benefit of that from the schedule standpoint. I see the Browns winning 12 or 13 games this year. I think they're probably the third best team in the AFC, honestly, behind the Chiefs and Bills right now. Them or the Titans. One of them two teams is the third best team in the division or AFC. And then the Ravens, I think, are the fourth or fifth best team in the AFC. I think they're right there too. I actually coming into this segment, I said that the Browns and Ravens will definitely both make the playoffs, and the Steelers will be right there for a wild card spot. But since you said they play the AFC West and the NFC North, I think there's a very good chance that there's three teams in this division making the playoffs because NFC North has the Packers and the AFC West has the Chiefs. And other than that, all those games are winnable.
All three of those teams are better than the bottom three teams in each of
Yeah.
the other divisions
So
by a
I
lot.
think there's a very good chance that this division has three teams, honestly. I would say Browns. I think Browns and Ravens, I think both have the capability of winning 12, 13 games. I think the Steelers will be more around, their ceiling is more around 10 or 11. I see them winning 9 or 10 games is where I have them. But yeah, I think three teams in this division is very believable.
So I think so. Obviously, no one's given the Bengals much of a chance to win this division. They're still a year or two away. The Bengals are coming. It's just not this year.
Definitely coming. They have a lot of good receivers, good quarterback.
And when it comes to the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns have a chance to be a very, very good regular season team. Just the way they run the ball. Now their defense will hold them back a little bit. Their defense isn't up to par with the Ravens and Steelers. The highest ceiling in this group, the highest ceiling is the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they're healthy, a healthy Big Ben with those receivers, they plug Najee Harris into a role that they didn't have anybody last year and won the division. They did not have a running back. Najee Harris has really good potential. And then you're also plugging in a tight end who has hands. Now, he's more of a question mark, but if his first preseason game has any indication of how their season's going to go, he's going to be a player, a tight end to watch out for, Pat Freiermuth. I think they have the highest ceiling, but out of those three teams, but I also think they have the lowest floor because they're not very deep. A bunch of injuries could derail the Steelers season again. So that's my question mark with them. Their O-line is revamped. They've plugged some holes. Depth is my concern with them, which could catch up to them in the regular season. But as far as highest ceiling, I say Steelers.
So how do you see this division finishing?
Well, I'm picking the Steelers, but
And then-
it's going to be competitive. And, like I said, highest ceiling, lowest floor out of those three teams. So if things don't go as planned.
Are you saying Steelers, Brown, Ravens? Do you think all three will make the playoffs?
I think all three of them make it, and I think the Browns finish second. The Ravens lost some D-line, which they weren't real good at last year. The Ravens D-line is a question mark, and I want to believe that they'll plug players in and it'll be just fine because that's what they do, but it's still a question mark to me.
And Dobbins just got hurt, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, that's definitely not.
And this is year 3.5 of Lamar Jackson. Kind of feel like teams are going to start catching on a little bit more and more to his play. That play just doesn't seem to last real long.
So everyone says that. Everyone says everyone's going to catch on. I'm not trying to be like, I know I've been the odd man out here, but what do you mean catch on?
Okay, maybe not catch on.
I mean, everyone knows what he does. They're just not as fast as him. Like if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. But that's what usually happens to guys like that. They get hurt.
It's not even just getting hurt though. But when you play like that, you lose a step quicker, and your longevity is much shorter than a pocket passer guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If he takes enough hits and it slows him down, that's one thing. But like, I don't think anyone's going to catch on to anything. Like, it's not a secret what he's doing.
No, they know what they're doing by now. I just think it may not be this year. And Lamar Jackson's great. It probably won't be this year, but I don't know. The defensive line, and then the running back already got hurt. It just makes me think that it won't be as good of a season for the Ravens this year.
Very good. Well, there you have it. Kind of a long-winded episode there because we had a lot to talk about. We're going to try to fit the AFC West in, or AFC and NFC West in. later this week before the season starts, so be on the lookout for that. Chase, I appreciate you joining us today. And, it was fun. Had you on for the AFC North. How was your first taste of 4th and 30 podcast being on?
Oh, it was great. I expected more fights, honestly.
I did
good-
expect a little more jarring when we got to that quarterback, but
Another
It's
good
awesome.
episode like that, Chase. We might change it to the 5th and 30 podcast.
Thank
hole
you. I
number
appreciate
19.
it.
All right.
Yeah,
I
let's wrap
appreciate
this
you
up. I
guys
gotta
watching
piss.
along. What was that?
I said, let's wrap this up. I got to piss.
I got to go to bed. I appreciate you guys tuning in with us this time. Be on the lookout for the Western divisions, and football is 6 days away from right now. NFL football, that is. College is 5. Oh, last week. Who cares? Anyway, until then, be good out there.
NFL football starts next Thursday is the first game. A week from
This
Thursday.
Thursday.
A week from Thursday. Yeah, not this next Sunday. Sorry, dude. There's a bye week in the preseason.
That's true. Anyway, it's soon. It's real soon, guys. Anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be good out there.
Tell your
Hey,
grandma.
real quick.